Good day to you, my friends of the internet. To be real with you all, I'm a tad surprised that we're doing this again. I've planned a lot of interview style podcasts for this year, and those are still coming out. But after the last solo video that I did, I'm not sure what's happening to me. Maybe I enjoyed it a little bit more than I thought I would. In either case, there's some things in my heart that I want to share with you all. And if you enjoy this type of content, let me know in the comments. Feeling a little self-conscious, so appreciate your encouragement. So with that said, if it's all right with you, if I have your permission, I'd like to zoom out and talk a little bit more about the fundamentals, less about tactics. For those of you who know a little bit about the work I do, I help musicians book performances, and I've just realized that I can talk about tactics till I'm blue in the face about what to do and all these different things. But I don't think you're on YouTube or wherever you're watching this right now because you want to, talk about tactics. I think that the real things that I've noticed or I've seen to be true of what actually gets people stuck are much more fundamental. So we're going to take a little tangent and we're going to do this together, talk about some things that are on my mind. It's a bit of a uncommon topic. Maybe there's a reason for that, but I think it's important. I'm going to talk about how to overcome discouragement. All right. So I believe that we've all experienced discouragement in our life to one level or another, something that you've hoped for before that hasn't happened, and a hope deferred makes a heart sick, right? So what do you do in those moments, and how do we assess? What do we believe in again? What do we keep moving forward? And no matter what it is that you're believing for or hoping for or working towards, what do we do in those moments? And I know in my own life, I've experienced discouragement many times, but have stuck with things long enough to see what the other side of that can look like. I remember that when I first moved to a new country and then realized that I wasn't allowed to physically work in that country, I felt like so discouraged that everything I had built, the business that I built that I absolutely loved, the degree that I got, was just all came to nothing, and I felt extremely discouraged without knowing which way to go. And I think discouragement comes from that sense of hopelessness, so we want to talk about how to address that. We've also been discouraged before when, the internet guru frenzy of trying to start an online business and it not being what it seemed it would be, what it was promised, and just so I've been through these seasons of discouragement, but I stuck with things long enough to know what the other side looks like. So hopefully there will be something that will help anyone out there who's perhaps experiencing some level of discouragement in whatever area of your life it may be, whether it's in your art, in your career, in your business, in your relationships, whatever it may be. I hope you find some hope here. And for my fellow Alex Hormozy fans in the house, I love the way that he describes it, because really when we have a hope, when we have anything that we're working towards, we start out, hopefully I'm doing this the right way, but we start out with this uninformed optimism, like, yay, this is great. Maybe we'll draw a little picture here, we'll see. But we have this uninformed optimism, but then quickly that goes into informed pessimism. Wait a second, this isn't great. This is a lot harder, a lot more work than I thought. This is not what I thought. And then we're in that pit of despair, and that's what we can call that season of discouragement. But what do we do here? Well, if we keep going, we can get to another side, or we can stay in the pit and we won't move at all. But if we keep going, then we're going to have informed optimism. So informed optimism is when you actually know what it takes to get to where you're going, and you can do a much slower, more realistic progress towards whatever that achievement may be. So I find that that's a very useful visual of what it often looks like to be in pursuit and to have hope in something. So yeah, let's speak to that a little bit more. I have for us three hot tips of how to overcome discouragement if anyone's feeling themselves in that valley of despair right now. And I hope this will be very practical for you. And if that's all right with you, we won't just be leaning on my 30 years of well-seasoned wisdom here, but we're going to be leaning into some more fundamental truths, ancient wisdom, things like that. So hopefully that's coolio with everyone. Alrighty, now the first tip I have to share with you all is a bit of a stinger, including for me, but that is to avoid complaining as much as possible. Avoid complaining at all costs if we can. And I know it is so natural when we are in an unfair situation to ruminate on it and to, get sympathy from others if we can. But as natural as that is and as good as it feels in the moment, the real danger of this is that as long as we are doing that, we're going to stay in the exact same position. We're not going to move. So we're not going to make progress as long as we stay in that state. And I believe the best illustration of this, again, leaning on what are some fundamentals here? I believe that stories that have been passed down for generations, lasted for thousands of years. There must be something that resonates with humanity there that must be true. So regardless of what you believe about the story, if you know the story of Moses who freed the Israelites from Egypt, they just went through a whole bunch of crazy miracles, like with getting freed from slavery in Egypt. Now they're in the desert, and then they're trying to get to the promised land. So the season of being in the desert was supposed to be limited. It wasn't going to be fun, but it was going to be limited. They were going to walk through it. However, because they complained, because they forgot about the great things that just happened and were just focused on their lack in the moment and were in a state of complaining, they delayed this season 40 years and an entire generation died because of complaining. So I think that's a very great illustration. We can keep ourselves from where we're trying to go to the promised land by delaying the season. That's supposed to just be a season. It's not like it was wrong for them to be in the desert, not like it was punishment, but that by their own choice, they extended that season through the use of complaining. And I see this to be true in myself, and I see it to be true in a lot of other circumstances. And maybe you can let me know if it feels true for you. But when we're in a state of complaining, we're not making progress. Okay, we're focused on ourselves, we're focused on the past, and we're not looking to the future. So as long as we stay in a state of complaining, we won't make progress. So I want to really encourage you. I know this is definitely true for me, and the seasons where I felt most sorry for myself the longest is when I stayed exactly the same. So I want to encourage you, if as much as possible, we want to avoid complaining, and we want to do other things instead, which we're going to get to in the next points coming up right here. All right, now the second tip that I have to share with you all is a great pairing to tip number 1, because what we can do instead of complain is we can encourage. We can encourage ourselves, we can encourage others, because those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. And I remember that this really clicked for my husband and I a few years ago, when he just realized, like, wow, like encouragement is like the only infinitely renewable resource. Like, what else? When you give it to someone, you get even more of it back. And if you had anything else like that, like imagine if it was just like, with food or something, you gave it to someone and you got more of it back. Like, why would you ever stop doing that, right? So it's incredible how deprived people are of encouragement and how much good it can do. I've witnessed this firsthand inside of our communities, because, this is kind of a little saying I have for myself. It's just like, I want to give people exactly what they need in order to, here's how you're going to book a whole bunch of like crazy awesome performances. Just go ahead and do these things. But I've realized again and again that people, they need to be reminded more than they need to be taught, because what to do isn't that hard. And, we can share that in one video, but they need to be reminded more than they need to be taught. But they also need to be encouraged more than they need to be reminded. And this is so underutilized and so powerful. And I strongly encourage anyone, if it's so natural and tempting, especially when we're in that state, that valley of despair, when, things were different than we thought they would be, whatever the disappointment is that's making our hearts sick right now, to just be so internally focused. But I've seen it again with like our members and, the people that I've worked with, that those who are, even when they're in down seasons, able to be externally focused, not just inwardly focused, in order to help others, they're the ones who get refreshed, they're the ones who get the most energy, and they're the ones who have the most success. So it's incredible to witness, and so I definitely encourage, it's available for everyone. Anyone can utilize this right away. Just try it. Just try sending encouraging messages, acknowledging people in your life more, and again, those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. So this is by far the best method I've ever experienced for myself to be able to overcome discouragement in my own life. So there it is. And now my third and final tip that I have to share with you all is to anchor yourself to truth and to just keep going. Now, going back to our friend Alex Hormozi's diagram here, we have our uninformed optimism, then we have our informed pessimism, then we have our valley of despair, and then we have our informed optimism. And this is where we can finally make slow and steady progress because we're working on a solid foundation. And that informed optimism, what's another way of saying that? That's truth. These are beliefs that are a solid foundation for us. So how do we do that? That's hard. I happen to believe that we live in a world where we're constantly being bombarded by lies that influence how we think about, lies about what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about others, what we believe about the world and God, everything. We're being bombarded by these lies, and I think that it takes intentional effort to be able to comb through our beliefs and challenge them and be able to put them to the test, to be actually able to find what those truths are that we can walk on as a solid foundation to make progress. But, bringing this down to the ground level, taking it to our hometown, if you, for example, you're building your music business, you have this uninformed optimism of, how things are going to go, and then it doesn't go according to plan, we have this informed pessimism of like, oh man, that was, not what I expected, and now we're feeling discouraged here. So what is that informed optimism that we can build towards? How do we find that? Because again, if we stay in that one place, just in that valley of despair, that's not going to be very great for us. But if we keep going, what can we find? Well, I believe one of the best ways to be able to discern truth is to learn from others, look from others who have been where you want to go, and be encouraged by what is possible, that if you take those similar actions, you can get similar results. So that's just one example of how we can take active effort to be able to discern truth and be able to build upon a foundation that is solid. So I definitely encourage that we take that mindset to any area where we might be feeling ourselves in that state of discouragement, whatever it may be. Realize that discerning what is true is a process, and it means questioning your own beliefs and allowing them to be questioned, which can be uncomfortable, but by doing so, I believe that can lead to a lot of fruitfulness. I've certainly experienced that to be true for myself of, sometimes we get attached to these things and that we feel are part of our identity, but is it actually true, right? I know that when I first moved to the US and I felt like my life was over when I found out I couldn't work and do the things that I had previously built so much identity on, was that actually true? Even though I felt that way, I felt discouraged. Was it the truth that my life was over, that I couldn't build anything different than what I had previously done? And the truth is that it wasn't true. Sometimes what we feel and what we think isn't always what is real. So it's really important to test and see what is good, what is true, and work towards those things. So anyways, I hope this has been encouragement to you all. Really appreciate you joining me here. Have a very lovely day. Thanks for listening to my rant, and we'll see you around next time.